I still remember the first time I realized I wasn't seen. I couldn't have been more than 4, barely tall enough to reach the countertop. I was standing in our small, cluttered kitchen, barefoot, holding onto a crumpled sheet of paper I'd been memorizing for days. It was a poem in Spanish, something I'd overheard a classmate recite and instantly wanted to learn, just to impress my parents. I practiced in front of the mirror, sounding out every word, getting the rhythm right. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I showed them something special, they'd notice me. So I stood there, proud and trembling, reciting every line with perfect pronunciation. And when I finished, I waited. There was only one cookie left on the plate beside the stove, and I had my heart set on it. But neither of them even looked up. My mom, casually reaching for the cookie, smiled, not at me, but at Jared. "Good job, baby," she said sweetly, handing him the cookie. "You went to the bathroom all by yourself." That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. It wasn't about the cookie. It was never just about the cookie. It was about what it represented: attention, validation, love. And in that single instant, I understood exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. That moment set the tone for the rest of my life. My older brother, Jared, was the golden child from the day he was born. His existence was met with parades of praise. If he remembered to zip his jacket, my parents called it maturity. If he managed to spell his name, they celebrated like he'd won a scholarship. Everything he did, no matter how small, was worthy of applause. And me? I was the quiet one, the self-sufficient one, the one who learned early that excellence didn't guarantee recognition. I was the kid who sat in corners with a book, the one who got straight A's, the one who taught herself how to cook by watching YouTube videos at 10 years old. I won spelling bees, memorized entire songs in French, earned top marks in every subject, and no one ever asked how my day was. No one noticed when I came home late from school or skipped dinner to finish homework. No one cared. I remember birthdays where Jared unwrapped the latest gadgets: tablets, video games, and drones. He once got a remote-controlled car that could flip midair. Meanwhile, I'd unwrap sweaters 2 sizes too big, or a box of books I had already read the year before. "You love books," my mom would say, if that justified everything. When Jared turned 16, my parents surprised him with a shiny used car in the driveway, complete with a red bow and camera flashes from their phones. When I turned 16, I surprised myself with a job application. I started bussing tables at a local diner 2 evenings a week to start saving up for my car. I didn't even bother asking for help. But I didn't cry. I didn't complain. I adapted. I took pride in being independent. I learned to keep my emotions neatly folded and tucked away where no one could touch them. I figured out how to be my own biggest fan. It wasn't easy, but it was mine, and in a strange way, that gave me strength. By 28, I had built a quiet, stable life. I worked as a junior architect in Atlanta, living in a modest downtown apartment that smelled like coffee and lavender. I went hiking on the weekends, hosted game nights with friends, and took long walks with my rescue dog, Tucker. My peace wasn't flashy, but it was hard-earned. I'd created something solid, something real. I didn't need the noise of validation anymore, or at least, that's what I told myself. Then Jared got married. It was a grand affair. My parents were over the moon. They rented a mansion-style venue in Charleston, hired a live jazz band, and flew in relatives from all over the country. I was one of the last to know about it. When the wedding photos surfaced online, I smiled politely and sent a well-wrapped gift. I didn't attend. I had a work deadline, or at least that's what I told everyone. The part that stung the most wasn't being left out of the planning. It wasn't even the elaborate wedding or the glowing speeches my parents gave about Jared and his incredible life choices. It was what came after. I found out, through a casual conversation with my cousin, that my parents had gifted Jared and his new wife $500,000. $500,000. Just like that. Enough to buy a fully furnished house in a gated community with space for a nursery and a home office. I remember freezing when I heard it. It wasn't jealousy that hit me, it was confirmation. Confirmation of what I'd always suspected but never dared to fully believe. I was never going to be their priority. I wasn't going to be loved the same way. Still, I kept my head high. I mailed a card wishing them a beautiful life together. I even added a handwritten note about how excited I was for their future. Because that's who I had become, a woman who had made peace with her place in the family. Or at least I thought I had. Then came Alex. He proposed on a Sunday morning, quietly, without fanfare. We were sitting on our tiny balcony, sipping coffee and watching the sky shift from gray to gold. His hands trembled as he held the ring, and before he could finish his sentence, I said yes. That moment, simple, sacred, was everything I had ever wanted. We started planning a modest wedding. Nothing extravagant. Our budget was around $40,000, and we were determined to cover the costs ourselves. We skipped vacations, cut back on dining out, and chose a venue that gave us a discount because I had helped redesign one of their patios the year before. Every detail was selected with intention. This wedding was about love, not show. Then, one evening, everything changed. My parents invited us over for dinner. The table was set with crystal glasses and my mom's best silverware. After dessert, my mom reached across the table and said, "We want to pay for your wedding." I blinked.
What?
My dad nodded.
We've talked about it.
Jared had his moment. Now it's your turn. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. For a moment, I couldn't speak. After years of feeling invisible, they were finally offering me something real, something big. I swallowed hard and thanked them. Alex smiled and squeezed my hand under the table. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, things were changing. The wedding was perfect. The flowers, the dress, the way Alex's eyes welled up when I walked down the aisle. My parents laughed, clinked glasses, and even gave a toast that made me tear up. My father called me his brilliant, strong girl. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to believe I had finally earned my place. But that illusion shattered exactly 2 days later. Still wrapped in the soft hotel robe from our honeymoon suite, I was curled up in bed scrolling through wedding photos when I saw the email. Subject: Wedding expenses breakdown. At first, I thought it might be a thank you message or maybe a keepsake budget file. I opened it. There was no message, just a detailed spreadsheet. Every flower arrangement, every chair rental, every glass of champagne listed line by line. The total at the bottom, $39,718.45. And at the top, reimbursement summary. That was it. No explanation. No warm note. Just numbers. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. The room suddenly felt cold. I couldn't breathe. It was as if someone had punched me in the gut and walked away like it meant nothing. When Alex got home that evening, I was still in bed, curled in the same spot I'd collapsed into hours earlier. I hadn't moved, barely breathed. My phone was still clutched in my hand, the screen dark, but the weight of that email pressing heavy on my chest. He walked in, took one look at me, and his face changed. His usual calm expression turned sharp with concern as he sat beside me, brushing the hair from my face. "What happened?" he asked gently. I didn't say a word. I simply handed him the phone. He read the email once. Then he read it again, slower this time, his jaw tightening with every line. When he finally looked up, his eyes burned with disbelief. "They actually billed you?" His voice cracked, half stunned, half furious. "After everything?" I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it was lined with thorns. I just gave a small nod, blinking back the tears that had been sitting there all day, waiting for permission. Alex tossed the phone onto the bed and ran both hands through his hair, pacing the room. "It's not the money," he said after a long pause, more to himself than to me. "It's what this says about how they see you. Like you're a transaction. A loan, not a daughter." That broke me. The tears finally came. Not soft and quiet like before, but heavy and hot, pouring out of me like a dam had cracked. Alex sat beside me again and pulled me into his chest, holding me like he could absorb some of the pain if he just held tight enough. I spent that night wide awake, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows crawl across it as I thought back to every moment I'd brushed off. All the birthdays they barely acknowledged, the way they praised Jared for breathing but never asked about my promotions, The way my mom changed the subject when I told her about a restaurant I designed being featured in a local magazine. How they never once said, "I'm proud of you," unless it was attached to something Jared had done. And then when they finally did show up, when they finally danced at my wedding and smiled in photos and gave toasts like we were one big happy family, they followed it up with a bill. An invoice. A final reminder of where I stood. I knew what I had to do. And for once, I didn't hesitate. The next morning, I opened that email again. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to. I went line by line through the spreadsheet.
Wine. Chairs.
Table linens. DJ fee. Floral arrangements. Every item listed, every cent calculated like it, had all been one big business transaction. I wasn't a daughter. I was a receipt waiting to be paid. So I paid it. But I didn't just send money. I sent them a letter. A real letter. Handwritten. For pages. Ink smudged in places from my trembling hand. I didn't scream or insult them. I didn't let rage guide my pen. I spoke from a place deeper than anger. A place of old, layered hurt. I started by thanking them. For coming. For dancing. For pretending, if only for one night, that they were proud. Then I began peeling back the years. I reminded them of that day in the kitchen when I was 4 and recited a poem in Spanish just to get their attention, only to watch them hand the last cookie to Jared for using the bathroom alone. I wrote about the time I won the regional math competition in 8th grade and rode the bus home by myself because they were too busy attending Jared's junior varsity baseball game, where he didn't even play. I told them how I'd saved for 2 years to buy a laptop for college after they said money was tight, only to find out they'd given Jared a just because trip to Cancun for finishing his business diploma 3 years late. I wrote about how I stopped expecting anything from them until that dinner, until they said, "Let us do something big for our daughter." I told them how I cried after that dinner, not because of the money but because for the first time, I thought I finally mattered. And I ended the letter with this. This check is not a payment. It's a farewell. I'm done trying to earn something that should have been freely given, your love. I folded the letter with shaking hands, slid it into a cream-colored envelope, and added the check. No signature. No, with love. I sealed it, walked it down to the mailbox, and let it go. And then I blocked their numbers. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was released. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. For the next few days, silence blanketed everything. It was quiet, almost eerie, like the calm right before a storm. But I needed it. I let myself exist without explanation. I cooked dinner in silence, went to work with headphones in, wrapped myself in Alex's arms, and let the stillness be enough. I was grieving, not the loss of them, but the loss of who I'd tried so hard to be for them. Then the storm came. It started with a number I didn't recognize, my Aunt Lila. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail anyway, her voice sharp with judgment. "You ungrateful girl," she snapped. "After everything they've done for you? You embarrassed your mother. Do you have any shame?" I deleted it. Next came a text from Uncle Rob. "How dare you send that letter? You humiliated them in front of the family. Hope you're proud." Then more. Cousins I hadn't seen in years sent snide messages. Screenshots of my letter had somehow made the rounds. One cousin even texted, "Hope the attention was worth it." I stayed silent. I'd said everything I needed to say. But then, Jared called. He didn't even say hello. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked. "Do you have any idea what you've done to Mom and Dad? They've been crying for days. You embarrassed them. You've ruined everything." I didn't say anything. I let him yell. "Why would you drag all that old stuff back up?" he snapped. "Why couldn't you just pay it and move on? You're always playing the victim." And finally I answered. Quietly. Calmly. "I'm not playing anything. I just finally told the truth." He cursed, called me bitter, jealous, and said I'd always been resentful of his success. Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. For a second, doubt crept in. Was I too harsh? Should I have just paid and moved on? Was I overreacting? That whisper of self-doubt, the one they'd nurtured in me for years, started circling. But before it could take root, Alex appeared beside me. He didn't speak right away. He just sat down and gently placed his hand on my back. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, his voice steady. And I believed him, because for the first time in my life, I had stopped begging to be chosen. I had finally chosen myself. I looked at Alex, tears welling in my eyes. I feel like I lit a match and burned the whole house down. He didn't flinch at my words. Instead, he reached for my hand and gave me a look that held nothing but steady, grounded love. "Maybe it needed to burn," he said softly. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering what life would look like now. The familiar chaos I'd grown up with, the constant calculating of moods, the endless efforts to please, the disappointment that followed, was gone, replaced by silence. Cold, cutting silence. And yet, in that silence, there was also something else.
Space.
The next morning, a delivery arrived. Flowers. Simple white tulips, my favorite. No dramatic bouquet, no unnecessary embellishment. Just pure, clean blooms. Tucked into the petals was a small card from Alex's parents. "You are loved. You are enough. Always here." I sat down at the kitchen table and cried quietly for 10 minutes straight. Not from grief this time, but from being seen. Alex's parents had treated me like family from the first moment I met them. His mother, gentle and intuitive, always noticed the little things. The way I flinched slightly when someone raised their voice. The way I downplay good news, afraid to seem like I was bragging. His father, calm and kind, once spent an entire afternoon helping me build a bookshelf just because I mentioned I'd always wanted one. They never made me earn their love. They just gave it freely. The flowers didn't erase the pain, but they reminded me I wasn't alone. Still, the days that followed were hard. My phone was a war zone. I stopped opening most messages. Even glancing at the lock screen made my chest tighten. Family members I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had plenty to say, none of it kind. I was called dramatic, attention-seeking, and ungrateful. A few even said I should apologize to my parents before it's too late. But I didn't reply. I couldn't. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to shrink just to make everyone else comfortable. And then, a week after Jared's screaming phone call, I got a message that stopped me in my tracks. Unknown number. "Hi, Rachel. It's your Uncle David, your dad's brother. I know we haven't spoken in years, but I saw what happened. Do you have a few minutes?" Uncle David. His name brought a faint flicker of memory. A warm laugh. The smell of sawdust. The last time I'd seen him, I must have been 9 or 10. He used to sneak me candy when no one was looking and let me play with his old wood carving tools in the garage. Then, one day, he was gone. No explanation. Just gone. My parents said he chose to distance himself and told me to stop asking. I never thought much about it after that. Just another blurry face in the crowded, complicated picture of my childhood. But something about his message felt different. Honest, grounded. I hesitated. Then I took a breath and called. He picked up on the second ring. "Rachel," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "Thank you for calling back. I hope I'm not crossing a line." "No," I said quietly. "It's okay."
He sighed.
"I saw how your dad reacted, and I saw myself in all of it, and I couldn't stay silent. I didn't speak. I just listened. My parents, your grandparents, they were experts in using love as a weapon. Affection was earned, not given. Praise only came when you followed their script. If you dared to question them, you were out." I felt my heart thud in my chest. "I was always the rebel," he continued. "I didn't fit their mold. I was too emotional, too curious. And one day, after another screaming match, I left. I was 22. I told your dad he should come too. But he stayed. And he became them." Tears stung my eyes. Not from sadness, but from recognition. Finally hearing someone put words to the invisible pain I'd carried my entire life. "So," I said, voice shaking, "this isn't just me. This is generational." "No," he said softly. "You didn't imagine it. This is the pattern. Love with conditions. Guilt disguised as concern. Silence is sold as respect. And the moment you step out of line, you're the problem. I wiped my eyes. I always thought I was crazy for feeling it. You weren't, he said. You were just the first one brave enough to name it. We talked for nearly an hour. He told me how he'd rebuilt his life in Arizona, far away from all of them. He was a woodworker now, owned a small shop, lived near the mountains, and had found peace. I'm proud of you, Rachel, he said before we said goodbye. Most people never break the cycle. But you did. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Don't go back. Don't let them pull you in again. This only ends when someone walks away for good. When I hung up, I sat in the dark for a while, letting his words settle. I wasn't the family's shame. I was the beginning of something new. The next evening, just as the sky turned dusky blue, the doorbell rang.
Twice.
Then again. I froze. Checked the peephole. It was Jared. He was pacing, fists clenched, eyes wild with anger. I watched silently as he stepped back and yelled, "Open the door, Rachel. Stop hiding." I didn't move. You don't get to break up the family and walk away like nothing happened. Still, I stayed quiet. He slammed his fist against the door. You think Mom and Dad are perfect? They're not. But they try their best. You were always the dramatic one, Rachel. Always needed to feel special. I reached for my phone and hit record. I wasn't planning to use it for anything. I just needed to remember this moment. The truth of it. He ranted for nearly 10 minutes. Shouted about loyalty, about family, about how I had ruined everything. And then, finally, he stomped down the hallway, muttering curses under his breath. I replayed the audio later. Not to torture myself, but to affirm what I already knew. They didn't want me to heal. They wanted me to stay small. In the days that followed, more messages came. Some pleaded. Some attacked. A few claimed Alex was manipulating me, that I was too easily influenced. But this time, the words didn't cut. I had new armor now.
Truth. Clarity.
Boundaries. I saw it all clearly. The emotional currency my parents traded in. The way love was wrapped in expectation and laced with guilt. The way silence was demanded and labeled as maturity. How appearances meant more than integrity. I hadn't started this fire, but I wasn't going to spend another moment smothering the smoke. And then, on a quiet Tuesday night, while folding laundry and humming along to soft jazz, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice wasn't. My father. His message was short, the pauses between words heavy. Rachel, it's your dad. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I'd like to talk. That's all. He didn't apologize. Not once. But the sharpness was gone. All that was left was a tired voice. A man who sounded like he'd been handed a mirror and didn't recognize his reflection. I sat on the couch, the phone in my lap, the laundry forgotten. He wanted to talk. But I wasn't sure I wanted to listen. Not yet. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the phone in both hands like it might dissolve if I let go. I replayed the voicemail once. Then again. Then a third time. Each time, I hoped to hear something different. A crack in his voice that sounded like regret. A whisper of the apology I never got. But it wasn't there. Alex walked into the bedroom and paused when he saw my face. His expression softened, and he sat beside me without a word. He didn't ask if I was okay. He already knew the answer. Was it him? He asked quietly. I nodded, still staring at the phone. He wants to talk. Alex didn't react right away. He just let the silence stretch between us until he finally said, "Do you want to?" That question lingered in the air, heavier than either of us expected. I don't know, I whispered. Not for him. But maybe for me. He nodded once. Then do it. On your terms. So I did. We met 3 days later at a small coffee shop on the edge of town. One of those quiet places tucked between a bookstore and a boutique, where no one knew our last name and no one would recognize us. I didn't want an audience. I didn't want the pressure of pretending. I just wanted space to breathe. I wore a soft gray sweater and tied my hair back loosely. No makeup. No armor. I wasn't there to impress him. I wasn't even there to forgive him. I was there to speak, to be heard, and maybe to let go. He was already sitting at a corner table when I walked in, hunched over a paper coffee cup like it was the only thing holding him together. His hair looked grayer than I remembered. His face was thinner, older. There were lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before. He stood when he saw me, but didn't try to hug me. That small restraint, something so unlike him, was a relief. "Thanks for coming," he said. I nodded and sat down. "Let's just talk." He looked nervous, like someone who had rehearsed this moment 100 times in his mind and had now forgotten the words. His fingers trembled slightly as he held the cup. "I read your letter," he began. "Twice." He paused, then added, "I didn't know. I didn't realize it felt that way for so long." I didn't respond. I didn't want to comfort him. This wasn't his healing session. It was mine. "I'm not good at this," he continued. "Feelings. Talking about the past. But I wanted to try. I wanted to understand." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the envelope, the cream-colored one I had mailed. My handwriting was still on the front, untouched. He slid it across the table toward me. "This doesn't belong to me." I looked at it, but didn't move. "I'm not taking it back," I said. My voice was calm, but firm. It was never about the money. It was about what it represented. You offered help, then turned it into a debt. That's not love. That's control. He looked down, thumb tracing the seam of his cup. "I didn't mean it that way." "I know," I said, more gently this time. "But that doesn't change what it did. What it meant to me." He looked up, eyes tired. "I don't want to lose you." There it was, the first genuine thing he had said. "I don't hate you," I replied. "But I'm tired. Tired of chasing scraps of love. Tired of trying to earn something that should have been freely given. I need time. I need space. And I need you to respect that." He nodded slowly, as if he knew that was the best offer I could give. Maybe the best he deserved. "Okay," he said quietly. We sat in silence for a while after that. The soft clink of ceramic mugs and distant jazz music filled the gaps. It wasn't awkward. It was just done. Eventually, I stood. "I hope you'll be okay," I said.
He didn't stop me.
He didn't ask for a second chance. He didn't make promises I knew he couldn't keep. He just nodded, eyes glassy, lips pressed into a thin line. I walked out, leaving the envelope untouched on the table. It wasn't a warm goodbye. It wasn't a beginning, but it was honest. That night, I sat down with my phone and went through my contacts. I blocked every cousin, aunt, and friend who had told me I was ungrateful, dramatic, or cruel. I deleted every text I had saved just in case. Every proof of their cruelty. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't do it out of hate. I did it out of peace. And then I moved forward. I poured my energy into the life I had built. The life I had chosen. Alex and I planted herbs on our balcony. We made pancakes at midnight and laughed when they came out slightly burnt. We went for walks with no destination, just the rhythm of our steps and the quiet of knowing we were safe with each other. We whispered about the future, about maybe starting a family someday, about building a home filled with everything we never had growing up: trust, safety, laughter. No performance, no guilt, no conditions, just love. Sometimes I still think about what I lost. Family holidays, traditions, the version of home I had tried so hard to believe in. But more often, I think about what I gained. I found my voice. I stopped bleeding for people who would never notice the wounds. I let go of the fantasy that one day, they'd wake up and see me. I built a life where I didn't have to earn my place. Maybe I lost a family, but I found myself. And for now, that's enough.